With the Season of the Lost coming to a closing and Witch Queen dropping in just under a month, here are some things that you should focus with your Umbral engrams before then. The Deafening Whisper is very good in mid, early, and end game content as far as red bar ad clear. The Imperial Needle is a very fun bow, good for champions and match game as far as being the only non-sunset void bow in the game. Extraordinary Renditions is a very good primary SMG, probably the best one currently available. Cartesian Coordinate is very good because of particle deconstruction, however even without it, it'll be a very good thing to use for champion killing if we ever get fusion mods again. Along with that, it is a very, very good pick for match game. The Sojourner's Tail, one of the best secondary slot slugs in the game for PvP, rivaling that of Chaperone Range. The Wolftone Draw, one of the best arc bows in the entire game. Because it can roll with Frenzy, it'll be good for those red bars and champions and match game. Chroma Rush, very good for mowing hordes and hordes of ads, along with being a very good pick in PvP because it's a rapid fire in the primary slot that can roll with Kill Clip. The Ignition Code is a very good pick due to it rolling with Slide Shot and Blinding Grenades. It is used for getting some yellow bar damage in or just blinding hordes of ads. This is the Deafening Whisper. Currently, my favorite weapon in the entire game. It is from the Season of Hunt and is the only unsunset waveframe grenade launcher. Now, as you can tell from the perk pool here, we have some pretty ideal rolls to go for. Now, this is one of my favorite rolls for mid to early game content. Auto-loading lead from gold always proccing whenever you pick up heavy bricks, giving you reserves in your special ammo too, allowing you to have both ad clear and your DPS covered with one brick alone. Very underrated perk in my opinion. And auto-loading, of course, being just like, it's a waveframe grenade launcher. It's basically Pocket Wither Horde. Now, my second favorite role would have to be either Ambitious Wellspring or Ambitious Assassin Rampage. Now, Rampage on this is a bit overkill, but it is very helpful in the later game content where you're locking ad doors, because this thing is basically just a special ammo Wither Horde. Now, Wellspring in particular is one of my favorite perks, but I think it's underrated just because people usually spec for higher discipline, strength, or whatever gives you your class ability. Now, because you're running Wellspring, you don't usually have to worry about having high stats like that. Now, a very strong role is Ambitious Assassin Unrelenting. However, a lot of people don't run Unrelenting just because there's better slots. However, regen after multi-kills is very good. From the Season of Chosen, many of you probably know this gun because Banshee sold the God roll, but the Cartesian Coordinate is a very, very good gun, and even with the seasonal mod particle deconstruction going away, it will still be very strong in PvE. Along with that, it does have a very widespread perk pool for both PvP and PvE. Now, a lot of these pairings just come up to preference. However, here are some of the roles that I personally recommend. Those being Vorpal, Feeding Frenzy. Now, this is very good for running getting things like champions. However, anything else that's not very optimized for. Now, Lead from Gold Vorpal or Under Pressure Vorpal, that is very good for boss DPS, especially with particle deconstruction. If you do run out of your power ammo, you can just switch to this and pump out a decent bit of damage. Along with that, for PvP side, high impact reserves under pressure gives it a lot of range. Like an absurd amount of range for a rapid fire fusion rifle. This thing is very fun in PvP if you make a build around it. However, there are better options. But still a very, very good pick for PvP. And it also has one of my favorite sights out of any fusion, the Red Dot 2. It's so crisp looking. I quite like it. And as per all fusions, it can roll with accelerated coils and liquid coils. Moving on from fusion rifles, we have the Extraordinary Renditions from Season of the Chosen. One of the best primary SMGs you can have in this entire game due to one perk alone, Frenzy. Frenzy giving you that reload damage and handling buff just from being in combat. You don't even need to do anything but shoot and be shot to proc that. That makes this thing so, so good. Now, if you pair Frenzy with Overflow and end up having a roll with Flared Magwell, you almost have 100 reload without any SMG reloader mods, and Overflow procs every time you get special, so the thing is almost always full of ammo. Another very good roll is Frenzy's Subsistence. Now, although it is an Overflow, you don't have to do anything special to proc Subsistence. As far as PvP goes, this thing can roll with Zen Moment, tap the trigger. Now, if you get that with Accurized rounds, it can get some decent range, but as an aggressive frame, and in the primary slot, there's just better options. Just spec for Multimaloc. Now, the Imperial Needle is from the season of Chosen, and is the only non-sunset Void Bow. So this is just a champion killer. This thing can roll with Frenzy, one of my top picks on any gun if it can roll with it, just because all of those buffs it gives to reload, handling, and damage. Can also roll with Impulse Amplifier, which is a very good pairing, along with Archer's Tempo. That just comes to preference, in my opinion. If you think you can hit your crit shots, go for Archer's Tempo. But, then again, this gun is just for champions. Now, as far as drawstring and arrowheads, that's just whatever you want. Usually, people don't go into that much detail on something that you're basically just using for either match game or champions. But, I mean, it can roll with some pretty decent things. Moving on from this, we have the Sojourner's Tale from the Season of Splicer. Now, this is not a very PvE-oriented gun, just because from its perk pool, it is not that good. However, this thing has 11 to 12 meters of range. That is an insane amount on a slug that is not an exotic. This thing is on par with Chaperone levels of range. Along with that, it can roll with Opening Shot that gives it the aim assist and extra range, and Moving Target. Moving Target is a great perk, but it also rolls with Quick Draw and Threat Detector. If you pair that with Accurized and Fluted or Hammer Forged with a range masterwork, this thing almost hits Chaperone range. It is not a fair comparison to put any slug up against this one besides Chaperone. It just is insane the amount of range that this thing gets. So if you're a PvP player and you use slugs and don't have one of these yet, I suggest going out for this. Now the scope is very funny looking, but it is a very, very, very good pick to go for. Moving on from that, I'm sure you've heard lots about this grenade launcher, especially when Season of the Splicer came out, the Ignition Code. Now, this thing is a very special grenade launcher just because it can roll with Slide Shot. This is the first grenade launcher ever that has been able to roll with Slide Shot. Now, depending on whether or not you're trying to go for DPS with this weapon or not, depends on the perk pool. Now, Demo Slide Shot with Blinding is one of my personal favorite builds that is used in endgame content, because blinding grenades are the pinnacle of overpowered. You can stop the enemies from shooting you for like 20 seconds. Now, blinding grenades and Danger Zone actually just cancel each other out. Blinding grenades remove blast radius, and Danger Zone gives back radius, so your blinding grenades just hit a larger area as long as you have Danger Zone procced. Vorpal on this thing is also very good. However, Demo is still my favorite pick because you're not gunning down champions with the GL. Now, Vorpal, Slide Shot, and Spike, though, if you were playing during the Breach and Clear meta, this thing was disgusting. You could just slide shoot, and like mow down champions like it was nothing. It was disgusting. Regardless of what you get, I would say mainly just go for the Slide Shot and the blinding, because that just makes a wonderful pairing for any endgame content. Moving on from that, another Season of the Splicer weapon, the Chroma Rush. This thing is not only good for champions if we get anti-barrier auto rifle, however, this thing is also very, very good for PvP. It is a rapid fire auto rifle that can roll with kill clip, rampage, and tap the trigger. That alone makes this thing outstanding as far as rapid fires go. But on top of that, it can roll with feeding frenzy for that reload, subsistence to not even have to reload, and dynamic sway reduction. Now, regardless of what you're doing with this thing, I would say go for kill clip and feeding frenzy. Very good at recoil reduction. Dynamic sway tap the trigger makes this thing basically have zero recoil whatsoever, which is very good on rapid fires. Feeding frenzy kill clip, very, very strong roll for both PvE and PvP. PvP because it gives that damage buff and feeding frenzy allowing you to reload faster. This thing has crazy range. Now, feeding frenzy rampage, I would also suggest. Rampage is just easier because you don't have to reload to proc it, but if you're pairing it with feeding frenzy, you might as well go for kill clip as well. Moving on from Season of the Splicer, we end up with one of my favorite bows. It not only being a farmable arc bow for champions, but I just generally like using this thing. It has some insane rolls, and it's just so satisfying to use. The Wolf Tone Draw from Season of the Lost. Now this thing has one of the most unique perk pools as far as bows go that we have probably ever seen. Now, Adagio with Impulse Amplifier I quite like just because you can pump those heavy hitting shots out faster and faster because of the improved reload speed. But another perk combo that works quite well together is Adagio Archer's Tempo. Now that alone allows you to hit those precision shots, reload, and draw faster, and Adagio giving you those heavier hitting shots, but slower charge time, you just end up getting that heavier hitting shot without the reduced charge time, which makes it very, very good. Moving on, this thing rolls with Frenzy, which allows it to have that increased reload, damage, and handling, making it a very, very good perk on this. Pairing that with Impulse Amplifier or Archer's Tempo, regardless, very, very good. Well, that is all for today. I wish you best of luck with your god roll hunting, and I will hope to see you in the next one.